Good morning everyone. In this video, I will discuss to you about the measures of dispersions. Let us define what is the measures of dispersions or what is the meaning of dispersions. So in statistics, a dispersion is also called a variability, scatter or spread. So variability, scatter or spread. It is the extent to which a distribution is stretched or squeezed. So some of the examples of the dispersion are the range, standard deviation, and then the variance. So here are the common examples of a measures of statistical dispersion. We have the range, variance, and then the standard deviation. Let us first discuss what is the meaning of the range. So when we say range, it is the difference between the greatest value and the least data value. So we need to identify first for the given set of data. If we are going to find the range, we need to identify first the greatest value and then the least value, or look for the greatest value and look for the least value. And after that, to get the range, we need to subtract them to get the range of a set of data. So let's have an example. So given the table below, find the range of the number of ounces dispensed by machine 1. So we have machine 1 and then machine 2. So we need to focus on machine 1 to get the range of the number of ounces dispensed in this machine. So we have here 9.52, 6.41, 10.07, 5.85, and then 8.15. And if we are going to get the mean of this, we get 8.0. So, to find the range, just look for the greatest value and then look for the least value. So, in this machine 1, the greatest value here is 10.07, and then the least value here is 5.85. Okay. So, sabi dito sa definition, in our definition of the range, it is just the difference between the greatest value and then the least value. Since we already identified the greatest value and then the least value, just simply subtract them to get the range of this set of data. So we have here, the range of the number ounces dispensed is 10.07 minus 5.85. So we have here 4.22 ohms. So this will be our range. So ganun lang po siya kadali. You just look for the greatest value and then least value and then subtract them para mahanap natin si range. Okay. Do not forget that. Okay, for your exercise, just answer your check your progress 6. So now, you need to find the range of the number of ounces dispensed by machine 2. Okay, next example of a measures of dispersion is the standard deviation. Okay, in standard deviation, what is the meaning of standard deviation? So when we say standard deviation, we have here if x sub 1, x sub 2, x sub 3 until x sub n is a population of n numbers with a mean of population, then the standard deviation of the population is equivalent to the summation of, we have the summation of x minus mean of the population squared all over n. So ito yung formula natin to find the standard deviation if the given set of data is a population. So if it is a population. While if the given set of data is a sample, we use this formula. S is equal to the square root of the summation of x minus mean of the sample squared all over n minus 1. So this formula is intended only for the if the given data is a sample of a population. So, to the mean of a population, we represent this mu, while the mean for the sample, we just represent it as x bar. So, ito yung formula niya. Sa population, we use the alpha as the symbol for the standard deviation of a population, and we just simply use S for the standard deviation of the sample. So, dito sa population, you need to get the summation of x minus mean of population squared, then i-divide lang siya sa n. While in the sample, same process, pero dito sa baba, in the denominator, we need to subtract 1 to the number of the data. Okay. So, let's have an example. By the way, these are the procedures for computing a standard deviation. So, first, we need to determine the mean of the n numbers. Pero alamin natin kung yung given ba is a sample or if it is a population. Kasi kung mali kayo, if you cannot determine if the given data is a sample or a population, mamamali kayo sa formula nyo na gagamitin. Because the difference between the formula in sample and then in population, ito, divide lang sa n, while in sample, nag-subtract tayo ng 1. Okay, number 2, calculate the deviation, the difference between the number and the mean of the numbers. So, after you get the mean of the given set of data or given numbers, calculate the deviation or calculate the difference between the given number and then the mean. So, need to subtract the given number by its mean. Each. Okay. Next is, calculate the square of each deviation, yung na-subtract na natin, yung difference na nila, and find the sum of this square deviation. And number 4, if the data is a population, so ito yung sinasabi ko kanina in step 1, if the data is a population, then divide the sum by n, and if the data is a sample, divide the sum by n minus 1. And to find the standard deviation, find the square root of the quotient in step 4. So, need to get the square root of the quotient in step 4. Let's have an example. So, in example 7, we need to find the standard deviation. The following numbers were obtained by sampling a population. So, we have here, so since dito sa example natin, it state there that it is a sampling a population. So, meaning to say that yung number na kinuha natin is just a sample from the population. So, ibig sabihin, hindi ito yung lahat na population. So, we just get the sample. So, ibig sabihin, yung gagamitin natin is just the second formula or the standard deviation for the sample. So, we have the number 2, 4, 7, 12, and 15. Find the standard deviation of the sample. So, dito, sa given, meron din nakalagay na kung sample ba siya or a population. So, we have here the solution. Step 1, calculate the mean. So, di ba, in getting the mean, we just add the given numbers and divide it by the number kung ilan yung inad natin. So, since 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there are 5 numbers or there are 5 set of data, we just get the sum of this and divide it by 5. So, we have the sum of this number is 40 divided by 5, so we have 8. So meaning to say that 8 is our mean. Step 2, calculate the deviation between the mean and the number. So calculate the difference between the mean and the number. So in this portion, pwede tayong gumawa ng table. And our mean here is equal to 8. So, ito na nga yung table natin. So, this x represent as the number in the sample. So, we have 2, 4, 7, 12, and 15. And in step 2, we need to get the difference between the mean and the number. So, ito, we have x minus mean. So, the given number, subtract by the mean. So, 2 minus 8, we have negative 6. 4 minus 8, negative 4. 7 minus 8, negative 1. 12 minus 8, 4. And then 15 minus 8 is 7. So, dito, we need to subtract it one by one by the given set of numbers, by the numbers. And in step 3, calculate the square of each deviation in step 2 and find the sum of this square deviation. So, dito sa step 3, we need to add one table here. So, mag-add lang tayo ng one table. Then, one column. So, we have here, this is our mean. Ito yung step 2 natin. We get the difference between the mean and then the number. And in step 3, we need to calculate each deviation in step 2. So, we have negative 6. Squared natin siya, we have 36. Negative 4 squared, 16. Negative 1 squared, 1. 4, we have 16. And 7, we have 49. And find the sum of this square deviation. So, we need to get the sum of this square deviation. Ito. Ito yung i-add natin. So, we have 118. So, this is the sum of the square deviation. Ito yung gagamitin natin doon sa formula. So, in step 4, the data is a sample, then divide the sum by n minus 1. So, because we have sample of n is equal to 5 values, we divide the sum 118. So, saan galing si 118? Dito sa step 3, yung sum ng x minus x squared, mean squared. Then, divide the sum by n minus 1. Okay. So, since this is a sample, so we have n minus 1. Then, 118 over 4, so we have 29.5. Or 118 divided by 4, we have 29.5. Okay. So, in step 5, we need to find the square root of the quotient in step 4. So, the standard deviation of the sample is s is equal to the square root of 29.5. So, we get the square root of 29.5. Then, round off to the nearest 100. So, the standard deviation is simply 5.43. So, yun yung step by step on how to get the standard deviation. But, we have, since I presented the formula in finding the standard deviation of the sample, we have here, we can use the formula. But before that, you need to construct the table that shows the x minus mean and then the x minus mean squared to get the summation of x minus mean squared. And first, we need to we also need to get the mean. Since our mean here in the first solution is 8, and the number of values or the number of number is equal to 5. So here is the table. So x represent the number of values. We have 2, 4, 7, 12, and 15. And the difference between them, this is the mean nito, and then the number, subtract them, and we get the difference or the deviation between the mean and the number. And after you subtract yung sagot doon, just square it to get the square of this number. And after that, pagkatapos na natin ma-compute yun, you just add to get the summation of x minus mean squared is equal to 18. Is equal to 118. So using the formula, we have s is equal to the square root of the summation of x minus mean squared over n minus 1. So meron tayong mga given. So since the given for x, the summation of x minus mean squared, which is 118, and then for the number is 5, we just substitute that to this value. So we have 118, palitan natin to ng 118, then yung n is equal to 5. Then we have 118 over 4, and that is 29.5. And get the square root of 29.5, we have 5.43. So meaning to say, 5.43 is our standard deviation. So pwedeng gamitin to or pwede yung step by step. So mas madali na lang na gamitin natin si formula para mas ma-familiarize natin kung ano ba yung gagamitin nating formula during our exam. Okay. So answer your check your progress 7. Okay. By the way, in number 2 here, divide the sum by n instead of n minus 1 because it stated there that it is the population. So, yun yung hint natin. Okay, and the last example of a measures of dispersions is the variance. So, what do we mean by variance? Yung variance is just it is just the square of the standard deviation. Yun lang yung tatandaan natin. Just simply the square of the standard deviation. So it is also used as a measure of dispersion. The variance of the given set of data is just the square of the standard deviation. So notations for standard deviation and then the variance. So ito yung mga symbol na ginagamit. So pag alpha, it is the standard deviation of the population. Pero kapag alpha squared, it is the variance of a population. And for S, standard deviation of a sample, then S squared is the variance of a sample. So since meron dyang mga squared because the definition of the variance is just the square of the standard deviation. Yun lang yung symbol niya. So let's have an example 8. Find the variance of the sample given in example 7. So, di ba ito yung variance natin? Ito yung given example natin. So, by this, find the variance of the sample. So, in example 7, we found that S is equal to the square root of 29.5. The variance is the square of the standard deviation. Thus, simply, get the square, magka-cancel to, and the answer here is 29.5. So, yun na yung variance natin. So, in getting the variance, kung hindi, kasi connected yan palagi, you need to find first the standard deviation and then get the variance of that given sample. Kung population man siya or sample. Pero may instances na Yung hinahanap lang is just the variance of the given sample or the population. So, yung process ng paghanap ng variance is same with the standard deviation. Yun nga lang, hindi natin ina-apply si step number 5. Nahahanapin natin si square root niya. So, in the variance, you just use the symbol s squared or yung alpha squared, and yun na yung variance natin. And wag na natin siyang i-square root. Kumbaga, doon tayo sa hanggang number 4 lang tayo. And we get the square of that, and yun na yung variance natin. So, check your answer, check your progress 8, and then the activity 4, measures of dispersion. So, I hope that you get our discussion, you understand well our discussion, and these measures of dispersion, if we are going to summarize it, it is the scatteredness or the the variability of the given set of data, and the most common example of the measures of dispersion are the range, the standard deviation, and then the variance. And to get the range, you just simply identify the greatest value and then the least value and subtract them. And to get the standard deviation, you need to identify if it is a sample or a population. Then use the formula to get the standard deviation. And first, we need to get the mean and then construct a table and get the difference between the number and then the mean and square it. And to get the summation, you just add yung nasa last part ng table and substitute that to the given formula. And for the variance, you just get the square of the standard deviation. Okay, thank you and God bless.